Hello, my name is Sam. I am the grant coordinator at Anton Art Center, and we are the facilitators of the Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs grants. Throughout this video, I'm going to use some shorthand. I'll make sure to identify the shorthand ahead of time so that I'm not confusing people. So if I refer to MCACA, I'm sure many of you are aware that that stands for the Michigan Council for Arts and Curatorial Affairs. So just know that that's interchangeable there. So what you're seeing in front of you is my main login page for the MCACA SmartSimple program. All grants now go through the SmartSimple program. I believe this is the second year that we are doing this through this formatting here. And so you will want to set up a mcaca.smartsimple.com account. Once that's set up, your login set up, you should have a screen that looks somewhat like mine. Mine may look a hair different because I am, for the Art Center, we are grant recipients as well as redistributors of granting. And so I have at the top mine set to my grantee home. So hopefully it looks close to what yours does. You'll want to make sure that you're setting up your organizational profile. In this video, we're going to be discussing the Minigrant Arts Project. In shorthand, I refer to the Minigrant Arts Project as MAP. And so to be able to see your MAP icon over here, or even pods or arts and equipment, you first have to do your organizational profile here. What you're going to see is what we have filled out as the Art Center, just so that you can kind of see what it looks like filled in. And so you're going to get brought to your main screen first and start inputting all of that data. Of course, with all forms, the asterisk means that it is required. No asterisk means optional. And so the first tab that comes up is your organization's information. You can see that our organization is Art Center. Other common names are Anton Art Center. In our case, we have a legal name and a more commonly known name, and yours may or may not have that. The street address, county, region, which can be found on the MCACA site. For Region 10A, this is Macomb and Oakland County. If you are not within Macomb or Oakland County, you can continue to watch this video to learn how to fill out your SmartSimple application. But we at the Art Center will not be your re-granting contact. You can find that information on the MCACA's website. You'll put in your phone number, web address, your EIN, our DUNS numbers there. Our organization is a nonprofit. To qualify for a MAP, you need to be a nonprofit, which also includes colleges and universities. Your application status, we are an arts and cultural nonprofit organization, institution, the discipline. You'll need to input your congressional district number here. There's a handy dandy link to help you find what your district number is, as well as your Senate district number and your House of Representatives district number. This information here comes in to play when you write thank you letters to your representatives, because that is, if awarded a grant, part of the final reporting process. We'll talk about that later. And so once all of this is done, yours should have a save draft at the bottom. Since mine is completed, I don't have that option here. So you'll want to save your draft and move on to your ADA 504 information. And then fill in as required who your coordinator is, the number, the email. A lot of this information you will have to get from your boss, whether it's an executive director or CEO or chair or whatever that looks like. But you will need, I suppose I should have stated that early on, that you will need the approval of your head of your nonprofit as well as your board, because a lot of this information needs to be pre-approved. The head of your nonprofit, be it your director or chair or what have you, will have to sign contracts, and so their approval is required. And so however you need, and you can go through, like I said, use that save draft, so that way you can mark the information that you need. Perhaps somebody else has that, and so you can find that. And so your staff and volunteers trained, all of these are ADA questions there. Organizational history and your board. And so you'll fill in here all of these required. Have you been operating continuously for 3 or more years? Unrestricted revenue of $10,000 or more for 3 consecutive years. These are in relation to requirements. And then you're going to write a brief overview of your organization's history. This can be as short or long as you need to express the history of your organization. Of course, this looks different for everyone. I personally recommend building this in a Word or Pages document before putting into here, just so you can make sure your spelling and grammar is correct. And if the internet does terrible things, you don't lose what you've been typing. The next question is to describe your board's representation of diverse communities defined by but not limited to race, ethnicity, gender, age, and disabilities. If you're an educational agency, you can refer to your district improvement team if more appropriate. And so then here you can see statistically how our demographics break down, and then listing the individuals below. There's also a fill-in that you have to put all of your board members' names, so that way they're getting the more specific. If prefixes are unknown, you do not need to include those. You can leave that portion blank. Some of our board members have identified as preferring female or male pronouns. Some, I could not find that information, and so I just left it out. Also have their first name, last name, titles including past president, occupation, and then city of residence. All of these are needed, short of the optional prefix there. The rest of the questions are required. You'll want to save your draft again before moving on. Demographics, and then you'll just continue to answer the questions as they are laid out. Again, my suggestion is to always, if it's a rather lengthy type out, that you use a word processing program on your computer so that you don't lose any of the information that you are inputting. Also, take advantage of that save draft button, so that way stuff isn't disappearing on you. You'll hear me say use the save draft a lot. The next is your MCACA button here, and so you'll attach anything as needed. There's a section for notes, activities list, your contacts. That should be your authorizing official, and he or she or they should be your executive director or CEO or chair or whatever title for the highest position in your nonprofit, or somebody that's given the power to sign and enter into contractual agreements. And then yourself, you can see me here. Samantha Russell is the grant coordinator. The varied titles there. Greg was our former grant coordinator. You may or may not be familiar with him, so his info's still in there. Any associations, any related organizations, and then the final tab just is showing grants from past and present, or present and future, I suppose. All right, so that should be what you need for your organization profile. If everything is filled out correctly in your organization profile, you will then see on My Opportunities, varied opportunities will pop up. Here at the Art Center, we have more than you may see. For the duration of this video, we'll be discussing this one here specifically, the Minigrants Art Project. So from that homepage, and once you're here, it's not that like this is going to disappear, excuse me. And so you can come back to complete this at any time. The first step is a relatively brief step. It does send a assurances page to the authorized official for your organization. So I recommend doing at least that bit real quick, and then you can dive into the rest of the application in your own time. So once you click there, you will see the 3 different options. These ones are passed, of course, so you'll go to the apply now. You can see here, I'm making this video within our round 1 of fiscal year 2022. You may see a different deadline here. That's fine. And so if you are operating within that, any year, rather, just be very mindful of what your deadline is. Perhaps set a reminder in your calendar. The application does take a fair amount of time, so make sure that you're giving yourself plenty of time to get it completed, because unfinished applications will not be viewed, and incomplete or late applications, rather, will not be accepted. The system just doesn't allow it. I have no override on that. So to fill out for a new grant, you're going to just click on that apply now. You'll see your organization's name, the project director. Make sure that's the correct person. And then you're going to answer these eligibility questions, right? And so is it in the state? Will it occur within the fiscal year 2022? Yours may, again, be different. And so you just want to make sure that your project, your map, is going to fall between those dates. And then to answer if you are a nonprofit organization registered with the state. And then submit. Assuming that you answered all of those correctly, you will then be brought to your assurances page. So at the top, you can make note of your grant number. The first 2 digits are your fiscal year. The second year stands for Minigrant, or the second 2 spots, Minigrant, and then the last 4 is unique to your specific grant. The status is assurances. That's what we're going to fill out right here. And then you're applying within the region for a Minigrants art project or map, your organization's name, project director, and this is the Docusign here. So make sure that you take note. There are application guidelines, this link right here. If you click on that, and second tab will be open up for the MEDC box. And so you can find a workshop prepared by Chad Bajereau, who works for the MEDC, and as a font of useful information. So if you still feel stymied after this video, feel free to check out this one here. There's also written guidelines, these PDFs. I suggest that you utilize those. There's some great information there that'll help you with this whole process. And you can see those are prepared by Jackie. She's another one of the folks with the MEDC and the MCACA that help with all of this. You can also email me at the Art Center, and I'll be happy to help you. So you want to give this a read over. The program does use Docusign, and so you may want to give a heads up to the head of your nonprofit that they will be receiving a Docusign email for both assurances and contracts, and what any other official documentation that we need signed will come from them. Read over this information here, and then assuming that they were added in during the organizational portion, you should be able to find them here. And so I'm going to search for Phil Gilchrist, who is the executive director here. He pops right up. So you can see Phil Gilchrist, executive director of the Art Center, his email name, all of that. So I'm going to click on his name. I'm going to select his role as authorizing official, because again, you need whoever the head of your nonprofit is to be your authorizing official. I'm going to add another contact, being myself, as the grant writer so that I receive notification. And so I'm going to search for myself. Be mindful that you are clicking on the right person. Here's a great example of that. I am in a unique position that I work as a grant coordinator, but I'm also an individual applicant because I live in a different county. And so when selecting, perhaps, you are the same, or, there's somebody with your same exact name. So you want to look to make sure, first check the name, check the title is helpful, check the organization name. So I know that this number 2 is the correct one when I'm working at Anton. I select my name, I select myself as grantee, I submit that information, it populates it below here, and then there is the further legal explanations of, no discrimination, what's to be done, various things here. You can see this little asterisk again, that this application is or will be approved by your board. You have to select one of these two. Most organizations require the board to approve things, and so you will select whichever of the two is correct. There isn't a wrong answer between those two, and then you're going to select the date that it was, or you hope it to be approved. And so just answer those honestly there, right? Organization name I can still see as the Art Center for Minigrant Art Project. And so the two options here, you can save to a draft and it pauses everything, or you can continue to application. If you continue to application, it's going to send the assurances page to whomever you placed up here. To stop another application from being populated, I'm going to skip this step. You will want to click your continue. I already have a grant up here, and so this would be a great way to show you, like, what do you do if you close out your, after saving or continuing the application, if you close out your SmartSimple because you end of day or what have you, where you now would find that. So once your application is created, you'll go to Applications and Grants. And any of the applications and grants that you had been working on will show up right here. And so you can see this one is the one that I was in just a moment ago with the assurances page. I'm going to spare my spare Phil from getting yet another Docusign email from me, because I'm going to be doing a lot of these today. I'm going to go ahead and open this one here that I already know the assurances page had gone out. You can see it's listed as draft, so you know that that is in the works. The contacts page is the first one that I like to fill out. I already have it done here, but similar to your assurances page, you're going to search a name. So Phil Gilchrist, you're going to tap that name. You're going to select whether they're the authorizing official or the grantee, and then you're going to hit submit. Same as you saw with the assurances page, it'll populate below there. I like to hit that first, that way if anything is getting sent out, such as the assurances, various DocuSigns and that, then the appropriate people are already identified. So back to this main page. This main page, you want to double check that you're writing at your correct grant. You can see its status is as draft, that it is fiscal year 22, Region 10A, Minigrant Art Project. The organization name, double check that it's the Art Center, project director. The application guidelines are here again. All of that information you want to double check. These tabs below here, these are where you input your application information. This is what creates your application. And so the first page is the project information. First up under there is the organization details. So you can see the organization's name, our tax ID and DUNS number, the answer to those organization questions. All of this is populated from that organization profile. Our ADA information's dropped in, contact detail. You can see I'm the project director, the grant coordinator, the address and email. All of that pre-populates in there. It's always a good idea to double check to make sure that you didn't mistype or that something didn't glitch out on you. Now, to get to the specifics of what you're inputting down here, first up under project details is department. In the case of the Art Center, we don't have a specific department for this map. Your organization may have an education wing, a dance department, a research lab, what have you, various departments broke down. So if there is a specific department that this is going to, you would input that there. Please take note of the little question marks. Those will pop up in various areas. You can also see it down here. If you hover over those, you don't have to click on it, just hover over it, and it'll give you a description. And so you can see here, enter the department, program, or subsidiary of the applicant organization, if applicable, right? So this one, no asterisk, not required. The project activity title is an asterisk and is required. And so here you're just going to put a working title. This title does not need to be carried through to the program's actual creation. It's just like it says, a working title. So it could be a temporary title. And it's a brief way to describe what's going on. You can see here, Music in the Garden concert series. So just to make up something so that y'all can see how this process goes ahead, I'm going to pretend we're doing sidewalk, chalk, mural in East Point. That's it. It's just a descriptive title, kind of gives the reviewers an idea of what they are getting into, or what they're going to be reading about, rather. The next question is the requested amount. You can ask for a maximum of up to $4,000. Make sure that you are able to meet any matches as they are required for the various grants. So you'll want to double check in the guidelines what that match is, which you can easily do just by clicking Save Draft. Clicking the application guidelines. You'll see that this is the Minigrant project. Where do I begin? This one is for the professional development, so it's the project I want. It does say art projects. Let's see if I can quickly find the match. Right. So under the basics, that your grants provide up to $4,000, and the grants must be matched on a one-to-one basis with cash and or in kind. State funds may not be used for matching this fund. Once we get to the budget, I'll explain in kind versus cash. But so it's good to just kind of keep this open to reference, right? So being mindful of the total need of your project, and then a one-to-one match. So say that, our sidewalk chalk mural in East Point is going to take $8,000. Excuse me. So if we want the full if it's going to cost the $4,000, we need to be able to match it with $4,000, whether that be cash, that could be labor, that could be materials that already exist, a whole slew of things. And so just keep that in mind. This can be changed later. All of this is editable up until you finally do your full submit. So you'll input the amount that you're hoping for here, and you're going to put your start and end date. By clicking the calendar, you can get a little quickie calendar to pop up. Make sure that you are mindful of those dates again. That your proposed project must occur between those. This again is for fiscal year 22, round 1. So if you're applying in a different round or different year, those numbers will be different. So just make sure that you're checking those out and selecting appropriately. Here's a project description that is required, and you're just going to kind of give a brief explanation of what it is that you're trying to do. You have, as you can see, the character count down here. It's only 600 characters. Rule of thumb is you generally want to get real close to that. If they give you a set amount to use, you want to try to use all of it. So, I'm not going to sit here and type out a whole thing, but you get the idea. And so it's just explaining essentially what this title. So this is just your single sentence hit. Consider this like an elevator pitch. You're going from floors 1 to 10. You got that long of a time using the characters, and that's for like each letter. You can see that countdown hitting. Think like Twitter. They have their characters, right? Next is a drop-down for the project's primary discipline. You can see that since it is for arts and cultural affairs, that there's a wide range of options here that may fit yours. If you need a catch-all, sometimes those are here. Visual arts, if you're working with any type of murals or installations or that type of thing, is a nice catch-all. I'm going to use that here because it's sidewalk chalk. The type of activity, again, there's a whole slew of different options. Make sure that you're checking those out, see which one fits, and selecting the proper one. I'm going to go with public art because it's sidewalk chalk, right? It takes place in the public. Next, we have the primary project counties, and so you're going to select all of the counties that would be considered primary for this, since I'm pitching this as a project in East Point. East Point does reside within Macomb County, and so I'm just going to check Macomb County because I assume it's just going to be that community. It may be from elsewhere. We may get folks from Wayne or Oakland or say even as far as St. Clair coming on down, but I'm anticipating it to be primarily Macomb, and it will take place within Macomb County, and so I select that. If you have multiple counties, that's fine. If it's statewide, that's fine. Out of Michigan, if it is out of Michigan, you do need to select that, but since this is Michigan-specific granting, you'll want to refer back to those guidelines to make sure that this is appropriate. Take advantage, again, use that save draft. It's going to save you a headache if things disappear. And so before I navigate away, I always make sure to hit save draft. And we're going to move on to the budget page. So you can see some buttons here to help you out. You can edit your budget. It'll populate into a PDF. The breakdowns here, including expenses and revenues, right? So that's what you spend. This is what you take in. Revenues can oftentimes be used as your one-to-one match, so keep that in mind. Clicking on Edit Budget pops up this here. And so you're just going to add employee expenses. And so to include in the total project costs for administrative, artistic, technical production employees, or anyone that receives a W-2. And so if you have particular employees working on this, you're going to note them. And so, you know, assuming that let's say I go work there, you have to decide if so cash is if I'm giving money, in kind as if it's my labor being used, and so my labor being used would equate to my hourly pay, and so I would just drop in the correct number. I'm just making that up there. If and so you have right, or MCACA share. So if I was being paid with the grant money, I would put that here. If my hours are an in-kind, meaning the Anton wages are being paid separately, not with MCACA funding, then that would be put here, and that counts as part of the match or a cash donation here. And so let's say that we have an artist coming, and they're being paid by MCACA, and so their rate for the day is $200. I'm going to put that there, and then, right? And so if we were to W-2 this artist and they were being paid that way, if it's somebody that you're going to pay with 1099, if they're not getting a W-2, then that would go elsewhere. Non-employee costs would go elsewhere. So if we have so this is our house artist that we pay a W-2, we have another artist coming from the outside, then we would put them here as a non-employee, which includes those 1099s, right? And we're paying them with MCACA money, and so that goes there. And then additional project expenses, space rental, travel, marketing, publicity, and promotion. Those could be added here, like a tent rental. That's getting paid for by MCACA, so we're going to put that there. Snacks. That's going to be an in-kind from a local bakery. Chalk. MCACA. So on and so forth, right? Just how they fit in. Other expenses would be anything that doesn't fit up there. And then you can see that it automatically populates what's happening down here, including the totals. And so you can keep an idea of, you know, maybe you're falling short on your in-kind. Figure out how to do that. Adjust this correctly, right? Then if you're going to do ticket sales, tuition, contracted services, or expect any revenue, and then that'll, add up to a total revenue here. Once you put numbers into these spots, it just kind of pulls up there, right? Unearned revenues placed in there. Government support breaks everything down. It's also... and so this is just all of your budgetary stuff. So you're just going to put in what you anticipate. And then there's the various boxes that auto-populate. Click Save. And then you can close. And then you can see that all of it pre-filled into here. So you can even view it in a PDF by hitting open, and it populates it into a PDF. You can print that, keep it for your reference, save it to your computer, whatever you would like, or just leave it there. You can go back and edit it. Again, like I said, everything is able to be edited until you finally submit. Save draft before I move on to the next tab, which is attachments. Here you'll see 3 attachments, 2 required, 1 optional. We have our narrative, the key staff and personal bios, supplemental material. Each of these have their own set guidelines. So for your narrative, you're allowed up to 4 pages. Again, if any type of system or program gives you a set amount, use it. Try your best anyways. There's also some formatting guidelines here of 12-point font, 1-inch margins. Number the pages and include the name of the organization on each page. Refer to the appropriate grant program guidelines, review criteria. Panelist scores an application based on the completeness of your answers to each review criteria, and some criteria are worth more points than other. And the MCACA encourages applicants to include hyperlinks and URLs of your website, links to videos, artist's website, marketing material, social media, so on and so forth, anything that'll help further explain what is going on. All in here, and they only accept PDFs, so whatever word processor you use, make sure that you're saving it as you go along, but that your final one is exported into a PDF file and uploaded here. Under the guidelines, you can see in the table of contents that they do give instructions, and so if you scroll down, they should give a breakdown. See, there's the breakdown of your budget, what is or is not included. All right, and so here you can see the narrative attachments, and this is worth 65 points. So that's a pretty big chunk of points going on there. And so you can see the bit of a breakdown. And then a subcategory breakdown of artistic cultural merit, community impact, and implementation and management. Under each of those 3 are additional 3 bullet points beneath. Describe your project, this, that, and the other. I suggest using this as an outline. You can just simply copy and paste it right into your word processing, and then you can kind of fill them in and answer them as you go. The narrative could be bullet pointed, it could be paragraphed, whatever way you feel best fits your needs to communicate. Our applications, as you saw, are reviewed by panels. Ours has 5 different reviewers, and so each of them are coming at this from a different angle and have different preferences. Quite frankly, there's no way to really know ahead of time. So I suggest to just share this information in the way that works best for you so that you can convey what it is you're doing clearly to our reviewers. A tip that was given to me years and years ago is to explain your project as if you're explaining it to someone with no connection to the arts. You don't want to over-explain, you don't want to become condescending, but you want to make sure that you're being very clear in what you do. So just pretend you were talking to your neighbor or a partner or a parent or guardian, somebody in your life. How would you explain this to them? And hit all of these bullets. I think that's a good way to kind of be very clear. Try to avoid any jargon that tends to trip people up because they don't always understand the jargon. Our reviewers more than likely are not going to sit and research what your jargon is. They're just going to move on and keep reading. So just speak very colloquially, plainly, just normal conversational way I feel works very well, but thoroughly explaining it. After the narrative, we have your key staff and personal bios. Again, it is a PDF upload. And so it's the appropriate staff and artist bios as it relates to the application project. Appropriate bios may include certified art teachers involved in the planning of the project, teaching artists being brought in, and or classroom teaching where the project takes place. That too is broke down here underneath the narrative. You can see the next spot is the key staff here. And there's the bullet points explaining the breakdown. Supplemental material is the third and final upload on our attachments. That too is broke down here. It's not a terrible idea to include something. It is worth 10 points. Sometimes this additional information, this could be PDFs from, say, if you're using a particular organization to come in and help facilitate your programming. This could be their brochures, narratives from their websites, screen grabs of their websites, all of this supplemental information. This is just stuff that you think is going to help fill in your narrative and key staff bios. This is going to help better explain what your project is. Once you have those 3 uploaded, of course, always hit your save draft. And then you'll be able to view your application PDF. And that's this tab here. Once you generate your PDF, you'll see all of the documents there. It's not a terrible idea to save this just so that you have it, so you have a copy. Internal, we use in-house a lot. This is something that you may or may not have, I can't recall. And then assurances is the assurance page that was sent off, and that'll appear here. And so you can check if it's been signed. This one has not, because this is just a dummy application. But you'll be able to note there. And then this online signatures button gives you a breakdown. So the envelope was created, and they sent an invitation, and that was it. So if you just see these two, that means that the assurances page was created and it was sent to your authorizing official, but they have yet to open it. Docusigns are good for 5 days, so make sure you're checking that date. That was just sent out as you see today, so that would be the 17th, I believe, that Phil would have to sign this. Once it reaches past that day, you can see down here, resend assurances for signature. You click that, it sends another email out, and then you can remind your authorizing official that they need to sign those assurances. Once everything is complete, you can hit submit. If everything is incomplete, you're going to see submission failed. The program does have a fail-safe kind of built in. And so you can see that I did not attach a narrative or the key staff, and they have not received the assurances page. So even without that assurance page, you cannot submit this application, which is why I suggest the save draft frequently, so that way you can get everything in. Once all of these needs are met and you hit submit, it will submit, and you'll know you're done, and then you just have to patiently wait. Our review will take place shortly after the application deadline. It does take some time because our reviewers have to review all of the applications, and then they meet to discuss their scores and comments. And then they decide who they're going to award or not award or partially award. So you may receive a partial of what you are asking for. Oftentimes that depends on the scores. It'll depend on how many applications we get, the strength of the applications. There's a whole lot of factors. And since our review panels change every year, it's a little bit different. We try to keep fresh eyes as well as people that have done it a couple of times to really diversify the feedback. The comments from the reviewers are visible once we're done. Once everything's done and the decisions have been made, the system will upload the comments from the reviewers. So those are helpful. Think of them as like a really good critique. Those are nice that you can go back and see what our various reviewers, anonymously, of course, thought of your application or different points. Perhaps they wanted more information. Perhaps they wanted less. And you may see contradictory responses from our various reviewers because all of them are looking for something different. And so take those in, read them over, apply what you think fits to your needs, and disregard what you think does not. Those are there to help and guide you, but they're not set in stone. So hopefully this walkthrough helped. There are various workshops that I'll be running. You can, of course, always email me. We could set up a little Zoom meeting if that helps you, or over the phone. Everything's being done virtually right now to be safe as possible. And so you can see again once here again, it's now at the top, the art project one that I was doing. You can see the project title. Mine still sits in draft. Once it's submitted, it'll say that it's submitted in review, the various stages throughout that process as it gets updated along. But you can find it all right here under your applications and grants. So, yeah, reach out to me if you have any more questions, attend one of the workshops. But have fun. Be thorough.